introduce Mr. Mike Rowlands and give the presentation over to him. Mike?
Fabulous. Thank you very much. I didn't realize I'd been saved as the best for last. That's so exciting. I'm
Absolutely.
flattered, deeply flattered, and I'm also flattered that so many of you have shown up on the Thursday night before a long weekend. I know there's lots going on. You've probably got family clamoring around, so thanks for joining the webinar this evening. We're going to move through a lot of material, and what I'm going to do is break it into 4 sections. Talk through a bunch of material and then take some time for questions on each section. And then at the end, we can talk about some more general questions that you might have that apply specifically to your market. So by way, just a little bit of introduction. Chris did a great job of letting you know who I am. I've been working with the Association of Farmers Markets for a couple of years. I've had the pleasure of connecting with quite a few of you in the past, in person or on the phone like this. Junction is a firm that focuses on supporting mission-driven organizations around the world. So many of our clients are nonprofits, many of them are social enterprises, many of them are in the food sector in one way or another. That's just a little bit about Junction. Just wanted to give you a sense of who you're talking to. I'm one of the 4 principals in the company, and I've been working in marketing and branding in one form or another since 1998. So long enough to have at least an inkling of what this marketing thing is all about. This evening, there's just 5 points on the agenda and lots of sub-points. So what I want to do is start with some of the basics and the fundamentals and give you a bit of an introduction to marketing. Many of you will have some of this baseline knowledge, but my primary motivation here is actually just to make sure we're all using the same language and the same jargon. Make sure we're starting with that same foundation. We're going to talk about some of the essentials of marketing and talk about this notion of value. We're going to talk about different forms of media and how you choose between them and how you set messaging for your marketing. And then we'll also talk a little bit about measuring success. One of the things that's absent on here, of course, is the creative side of marketing, the brainstorming and the creative, the advertising work and the copywriting. We could do a whole other webinar on the creative side, but what's most important to understand about the creative is it's most successful when it's framed in the context of really strong marketing strategy. So it's mostly the marketing strategy and how to develop a plan and what should be in that plan that we're going to talk about this evening. We're certainly going to leave time at the end for more questions, for discussion, and like Chris mentioned, a little bit of a hint of what might come next after this. So without further preamble, let me dive into that first section about an introduction to marketing. So I think it's fair to say marketing is fundamental to your success, right? Marketing begins before you have a relationship with customers and encourages them to at least think about you. It extends through your one-to-one relationships with your customers, and it supports you when you can't be directly connected to customers. So marketing can be thought of as something of an ambassador when you can't be in the room. So planning your marketing activity is really essential to your business success, right? Planning helps you preserve scarce resources, whether you're thinking about scarce resources in terms of budgets or in terms of time, whether it's staff or volunteer time. You've got to make sure you're preserving those scarce resources, and without a plan, you never know what's going to happen to them. So marketing is fundamental to your success. Marketing is not fundamental to sex. I nearly said it, so I'll put it out there. Marketing is fundamental to your success, and planning that activity is essential to a strong marketing plan. So let's give a definition to marketing, right? There's any number of definitions that get batted around. This is the one that we rely on. Marketing is the right message to the right audience at the right time and in the right way. So let me break that down. Marketing is the right message. It means you need to understand what to say to encourage your customers to consider buying from you. That's distinct from sales, where you're trying to persuade your customers to make a purchase. Marketing, what you're trying to do is help your customers understand why they should think about buying from you. The right audience is about being clear about who is likely to buy your products and services. Right? Many people tend to believe that their audience is the general public, but the general public can be broken down in many different ways, and understanding that subset of the public that's most likely to buy your products and services is an essential first step in defining your marketing plan. We're going to talk about that a little bit more shortly. The right time is about knowing when people are ready and able to hear your message. Ready and able to hear your message. Being ready is one thing. Being able, actually knowing that your marketing is showing up in the right venue where your customers are likely to be, is another important aspect of marketing. And we're going to touch a little bit more on that when we get down to media in a few minutes' time. And then fourthly, in the right way, sharing your messages in a way that will help people connect, will help people understand why they should be shopping with you. So marketing is the right message to the right audience at the right time and in the right way. So what distinguishes marketing in the social enterprise? Nothing. It's the same to some degree. Every effective marketing program thinks about diverse audiences. Marketing has to be tailored to reach your specific audiences. And the ultimate aims are the same, whether you're in a social enterprise like a farmer's market or any other kind of social enterprise, or you're in a traditional business. Your marketing has to introduce you, has to inform your customers, and it has to earn their business and then their loyalty. On the other hand, everything is a bit different in a social enterprise, right? As a social enterprise, you have a purpose beyond profit. You exist to do things that other businesses might not do. Now, sometimes it's easy to make a mistake and talk about the purpose beyond profit too early. There's a tremendous social enterprise in Vancouver that many of you no doubt will have heard of called Potluck Cafe. It's a great enterprise that directly supports people living with barriers in the downtown east side. And their work involves training people to be cooks and chefs, and then they have a social enterprise cafe that serves people who live and work in the downtown east side. To diversify their business, quite a few years ago, they decided to move into the catering business. And the proposition that they took out to local businesses was, we employ former drug addicts and of course, the piece that stuck in people's minds was, there are people with these kinds of barriers making my lunch. And it became a incentive that they thought that social purpose would be.
Mike.
So Potluck had to shift their strategy. Rather than selling that, yes.
Sorry, Mike. We lost the audio there just for about 2 minutes. So we got it right up until you just introduced Potluck and then what they were going out and introducing their business as.
Okay, great. I'll start with that Potluck story again.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So they started, no, not at all. Thanks for letting me know. So they started this catering business as an extension for their cafe. And they went out to the market and presented to businesses the opportunity to buy catering services from an organization that employed recovering drug addicts and people living with HIV who happened to live in the downtown east side. So their intent was good. They wanted to showcase that there was this great social mission and that they were employing people with really significant barriers to employment. But what the audience heard, of course, was recovering drug addicts and people living with HIV making my lunch. And it wasn't a resonant sales pitch. And Potluck Catering didn't do very well until they changed their pitch. And they didn't talk about their social purpose first. They talked about great service and timely delivery and pickup and a distinctive packaging that the meals came in. And suddenly they started to sell. And they did really well selling. And when somebody else tried to poach their business, then they let the office managers know that, oh, by the way, did you know we have this tremendous social mission? So by tucking that social mission in at the right time as part of their messaging, they were able to retain their customers for a longer time. So it's really important to think about when you talk about that social purpose and when is the right time to pass that message along. It's often not at the front end of your marketing. Marketing starts with understanding. So we always want to get to the exciting part about marketing where we're doing developing the creative and trying to share messaging in a really fun, engaging way. But in fact, great marketers start by really, really deeply understanding their marketing, asking lots of questions. Who is it that you're trying to reach? What is it that makes them want to shop with you instead of your competition? Where are they? Where do they live? Where do they work? Where do they do their shopping? And what attitudes or beliefs do they already have that might impact their decision to shop your market? What attitudes and beliefs do they have about price? What attitudes and beliefs do they have about the quality of supply at a grocery store as opposed to the market? Understanding your audience's perspectives on these questions and many others is the most important part of marketing. If you don't understand the audience that you're going to reach, how can you possibly tell the best story to convince them to shop with you? So marketing always starts with understanding and getting to know your customers. I wanted to give you just a few powerful questions you can use to start learning to understand your customers. This first question here is about keeping your marketing thinking in the broader context of your competition, right? You don't want to build a marketing message that echoes your competitors. What you want to do is find the gaps in the market that you can successfully serve. The second question is about thinking about the distinct demographics, age and income levels among the audience that might shop with you. But you also need to think about distinct psychographics, groups of people that share attitudes and beliefs. Who are those people that shop at your market, and what is it that makes them distinctive demographically and psychographically? And then the third question is really the most powerful of the three. This question is a great one to ask a number of your colleagues to answer, or better, to ask a number of your customers to answer, and maybe the vendors at your market. And you'll get an incredible diversity of ideas. But the great thing is that the answers you'll get to this third question are almost always benefit statements, which are key marketing messages. And we'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. So there's a load of content really quickly to give you the basics of marketing. I wanted to take a pause here and take any questions that anybody might have.
Okay, thanks very much, Mike. So, folks, what we're going to do now, we'll run this one first on the Put Your Hands Up in the Air program. If you have a question for Mike specific to what we've heard so far, if you could just put your hand up in the air, the little virtual hand that shows up on your control panel there, and I will unmute you and you can ask the question of Mike. Don't be shy.
I'm happy to keep going if there's no questions at this point.
Well, I'm just going to double check here. There's no question. Oh, we've got one. We will take it from Brenna. Hi, Brenna, go ahead.
Hi. I just had a question about the psychographics. Does that mean what are our customers' values, or can you just talk a little bit more about what psychographics is?
Absolutely. So psychographics is a lovely piece of marketing jargon, but
Yeah.
basically what it means are what are the attitudes and beliefs, values for sure, that unite different subsets of your audience. So when we think about the general population demographically, we could think about people in their youth, we could talk about people in their senior years, we could talk about women versus men, we could talk about the working population versus the not working population, people with various levels of household income. When we think about psychographics, we start to think about another piece of jargon, the tribes that people are members of. So are these people outdoor enthusiasts? Are these people environmental enthusiasts? Are these people religious? Are these people urban, what's the phrase? Are they urban dwellers that have a very sort of modern perspective on life and work? Or are they more rural and have a more conservative perspective on life and work? So rather than the factual stuff around age and working life and household income, this is more the attitudinal stuff. And we're all members of many tribes. I'm a mountain biker, I'm a parent, I'm a resident of the North Shore, I'm a hiker, all of these different attitudes about me, or attitudes that I have that are based on my lifestyle. That's all psychographic data about me.
Okay. So how do you get that kind of information?
Well, a lot of it is just getting to know your customers. Like I bet that if you spend even a month of weekends at your market, you know a lot of the things that tie your customers together. It's really obvious sometimes demographically, but psychographically you can also see the people that show up on their bikes, the people that are talking about whether produce is organic when they're buying. You can start to listen and hear important cues for what it is that these people deem to be important. And then by extension, you can start to assume that there are others in the group, others in your customer base that share the same attitudes and beliefs. So sometimes just listening and getting those cues is enough to help you understand how to break down your audience and what kinds of messages are going to appeal to them.
That's great. Thanks very much, Mike. Having no more questions, let's carry on.
Okay, so the next section is about the essentials of marketing, the real fundamentals in the marketing space. There are essential building blocks to marketing. There is a really famous marketing framework cleverly named the 4Ps, because there's 4 words here that all start with P. Sometimes marketers aren't that imaginative, but these are the essential building blocks of successful marketing. This is the foundational stuff. So product is obviously about what it is that you sell. It might be a product, it might be a service, but it is the thing that you sell, the thing for which you exchange money. What opportunities do you have to sell products or services that your customers want and that they can't get elsewhere? Place is about where you sell, and it's just as important as what you sell. In retail, there's an old adage, the first 3 rules of retail are location, location, location. So accessibility is what that's about, and accessibility for your customers is essential. Also, visibility to potential customers could be your most valuable marketing device. So if your market is in a location where there's a lot of flow-by traffic, that might be a really powerful marketing device because there's so many potential customers flowing past your market, having a look at the market as they move by and thinking about, no, perhaps I should be doing my shopping there. Now, speaking of a valuable marketing device, promotion is the stuff everyone thinks about in marketing. This is the stuff of the Mad Men TV show, right? It's the fun, it's the creative, it's a great place to play and work, but it's only useful if you have the other 3 Ps figured out first. And then there's price, and this is a really interesting one. Pricing yourself high sets expectations about product and service quality that you really need to be ready to meet. Pricing your wares low also sets expectations. But the interesting thing from my point of view is neither of those strategies is inherently better. They're just different. Some products can be priced high, some products can be priced low, some products are quite elastic in that. But what's important to understand is the diversity of pricing that you can have in a single market. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. Let's start by talking a little bit in more depth about product, what your customers really buy. Customers have plenty of choice. There are many different places they can shop. There are many different vendors in a single market. They certainly could buy from your competitors. They could choose not to purchase us at all, right? So there's many different things that would motivate somebody to buy a product. It's interesting as well how much the news media and peers influence what we choose to buy. I think the last couple of years, everybody's been mad about kale. A few years before that, everybody was mad about spinach. These were the superfoods that we just absolutely had to have. People are showing up at markets going straight to buy the kale because that's the thing they know they have to have. Well, that product mix, that sort of focused product is one really interesting thing to observe in the market. But those trends change, right? People's tastes and preferences change, sometimes as quickly as the newsreels, sometimes as quickly as the latest diet fad. Sometimes those trends are a little bit longer. So the point is you've got to be continually reviewing and understanding what those trends are so that you can stay competitive. Product's also about why your customers really buy, and it's important to understand when you're framing marketing messaging what it is about a product that actually engages people to purchase. So in order to explain this theory, I always use my own experience. I spent about 10 years in retail selling bicycles. And one of the things that we talk about with bikes is the fact that the bicycle has an aluminum frame instead of a steel frame. So the actual frame of the bicycle is made of aluminum instead of steel. This is nice because it's light. So the aluminum frame is the feature and the lightweight is the advantage. But in fact, customers don't buy because of either of those things. They buy because of the benefits. And the benefit of a lightweight aluminum frame is A, it's easier to ride uphill. B, it's easier to lift onto the bike rack on the back of your car. C, it's easier to lift and hang in your garage. So there's three benefits that derive from the same feature and advantages, but customers buy because of the benefits. So you've got to think about the messaging in your marketing, fabbing your customers, feature, advantage, benefit. You want to land on the benefit. Don't market or sell features or advantages. Always get to the heart of the matter, what matters to the customer, and that's always the benefits. Place is the second of the 4 Ps. Now, in this slide, when I say how far are you able to reach to deliver your products, I don't mean deliver quite literally. I'm referring here simply to getting your products in front of your customers. Where can you show up? Most of you are running markets that regularly present your products in fixed locations. It might not be the only way you can reach your customers, right? So it's important to think about the diverse ways you can reach them. Might you sell through wholesale? Might you do online sales? Might you do a subscription service where you literally show up and deliver produce every week? There's a number of different ways that you can actually move the place and develop an entirely different marketing strategy just by thinking about the different places that you can show up. The third P is promotion. Again, this is the one that everybody gets excited about. Each promotional opportunity has to contribute to one or more of your strategies and help you to reach your goals. All marketing is about supporting your business and helping it reach its goals. So a great deal on any advertisement or placement on a particular bus shelter might be good, but it's only a truly great deal if it helps reinforce your message and contribute to your goals, right? Placing an ad in one place isn't great if it doesn't actually reach the audience that you're trying to reach. Second, your messages must drive your selection of promotions. So we're going to talk more about messages shortly, but one really common mistake is to use really appealing promotional opportunities when they aren't the best vehicle to convey your message. So this could be a really obvious challenge, right? If you're trying to appeal to local seniors to come to the market, an ad in a school fundraising brochure is probably not the best place to reach out. Right? So your goals and messages should drive your promotions, not the other way around. It's actually really rare that one promotional vehicle will achieve your marketing goals. So you need to think about them as a mix. The marketing mix is a really frequently used piece of jargon, and thinking about using different promotional vehicles to support your various marketing goals is essential because it's really rare you get a one-to-one match. And you also have to understand that promotional planning actually takes a good deal of time for marketing. This is one of the hardest parts. The challenge is that it can be utterly different from one market to the next. You need to get as much information about promotional opportunities as you can, who they'll reach, where they'll reach, what you know about local publications or radio stations and their audiences. Are they the same as yours? Do they overlap with yours? There's a lot of research you can do to understand the best promotional opportunities. And the more you learn, the more you can connect the promotional opportunities both to your messaging and to the market that you're trying to reach, and the more effective the promotions will be. Now the fourth P is price. In its most basic terms, price is what you expect in exchange for your product or service. So it's obviously connected to value and the market's perception of value. But we all know that a lower price doesn't necessarily indicate better value, right? Of all the subdisciplines within marketing, very few have generated as much attention, academic theory, philosophies as pricing strategies. We've actually found more than a dozen distinct pricing strategies that organizations use to put prices to their products. But for today's purposes, here are the two that are used most commonly. And I think this contrast really indicates how you can be flexible with how you apply pricing in your marketing mix. So the first is the cost-based approach. And what you do here is you add up the costs to deliver a product or service, add an acceptable profit margin, and then that total is established as the price, right? It's important that all contributing prices are considered, including the costs of all the promotional activity, to make customers aware of the product. So that's a very basic way of doing things. You add up all of the costs, you establish what you believe is a reasonable profit margin. Maybe it's 15%, maybe it's 50%, maybe it's more, and that becomes your price. That's very different than a value-based pricing model. In this approach, you add up, you basically set the price on what the market will bear, right? So this might be a lot more than a cost-based price, or it might be lower than a cost-based price. But what it allows for is various intangibles to be factored into the pricing. So here's a really, pretty incredible contemporary example is Apple, right? The Apple computer. People are willing to pay a really significant premium for Mac computers or for the iPhone, in contrast to the dozens, hundreds of alternatives that they could buy. So they have a really, really strong value-based pricing opportunity. Now at your markets, it's the various vendors that set pricing, and they might use either type of pricing approach. What you may find is that outliers don't do well at your market, meaning if vendors price too high on value, they may stand out as expensive in the context of your specific market. If the vendors are around them are primarily cost-based and relatively lower, then you should think about a value-based section of your market. It could be that some vendors in your market are value-based and are able to sell at a higher or premium price. And sometimes it's effective to cluster those in a section of the market, break them out as kind of a boutique part of the market. But the most important consideration in every social enterprise is to understand clearly what premium your customer might accept to support your social value. Now, this is the opportunity for the market as a whole, right? It's true that customers will pay a premium for a product or service that they believe is better for the planet or better for their community. And all of the studies I've seen seem to indicate that people will spend a 5 to 7% premium pretty comfortably if they know they're getting, again, a product that's environmentally friendly or socially responsible. So you've got that little bit of elasticity. On the other hand, it's really easy to overestimate customers' goodwill, so you have to be careful with it. Now, I started with the 4 Ps, right? Just to prove the rule, somebody had to come along with the 5th P. And I would say if there's one book that you're going to read about marketing, it's a classic from the 1980s called Positioning. That's the 5th P. The vital contribution of this P, and the reason it's become a really important part of marketing theory, is it sets the other 4 Ps into a competitive context. Right? So positioning is all about how you'll be compared. So it's absolutely fundamental to the messages you'll decide to share. And fundamental to positioning is the assumption that it's best to be first or second in your market, meaning when people think about going to buy produce, they think about the farmer's market first or second. You might be the only farmer's market in your town, or you might be the biggest market in your city. Whatever it is that makes you distinctive, that's what makes you the only choice for some customers. I mentioned the word value a few minutes ago. And one of the worksheets that was in the package that was sent out earlier in the week was this piece, which is the value spectrum. And I want to talk about this because value is this really sort of strange elastic concept. The value spectrum is basically 5 points on a line. So when you look at this worksheet, there's 4 obvious points, but fair value stands right in the middle. So it's the sort of the first or the 5th one right in the center of the spectrum. Fair value is defined as how the market generally perceives an acceptable cost and value relationship. So for the sake of a really widely recognized example, think about buying jeans at the Gap as an example of fair value. By contrast, the Same for Less offers a product that's perceived to be the same as fair value, but from a company that works to offer it at a lower cost. Now, typically, Same for Less companies strive to show how efficiencies or economies of scale allow them to offer a better price. So to take the jeans analogy further, we might think about Old Navy here. Their self-serve displays are way more cost efficient than the helpful staff we get at the Gap, and the bigger volume-driven stores provide significant scale economies, right? Now, on the other side of fair value is more for same, where we might see an improved product, but what is perceived at a very similar price to fair value. So this is a category that strives to demonstrate technical innovation or ingenuity or a heightened sense of style. In their case, it allows them to offer a better product at about the same price. And Banana Republic might take jeans that maybe they don't crease after washing, or maybe the dye is a little deeper, or they're available in more current colors or more fashionable cuts. Functionally the same, but with a higher perceived value. Less for Less is really honest about lower expectations of the product, but it's also clearly offered at a lower cost. So this is a price-based motivation, and it's demonstrated through removal of service or of customization, often through really large-scale formulaic approaches. So if you think about buying jeans at Walmart, that's what this position is all about. And then lastly, there's More for More, which delivers a premium product at a premium price. So this is a category that takes features way better than the fair value product, offering maybe advanced technology or way higher service standards, much stronger customer care. More for More is typically reinforced with a really distinctive customer experience. So it's very one-to-one, very bespoke. If you were to buy jeans at Holt Renfrew or Harry Rosen, that would be the sort of the metaphor in the jeans piece. Now, what's really interesting for me about the value spectrum is it's actually kind of relative. What if you believe Old Navy is fair value? That would make the Gap More for Same and Walmart Same for Less. Then maybe Army and Navy becomes the Less for Less alternative, which slides that further. Or if you slid it even further again, a thrift store would become the Less for Less. So the relativity of the value spectrum is valuable because it helps you understand different audiences' points of view. It also makes it easy to assess different opportunities in the market. So really interestingly, Old Navy, The Gap, and Banana Republic are all actually the same company. Their marketing team recognized that there were opportunities at 3 different points on the spectrum and developed brands and value propositions to occupy those 3 points. So my question to you is whether you could do something similar, right? Could you think about your market as fair value and brainstorm ideas of what a more for same product might look like, or a more for more product, or a same for less product, or a less for less product? How would you change the proposition of your market to deliver a premium offering or to deliver a discount offering? Now, the other interesting fact that I would say about the value proposition is that none of these positions is inherently a better business model than the others. All the points are viable, and there are really successful examples of businesses and social enterprises at every point on that spectrum in most industries. So you legitimately can take advantage of multiple positions on that spectrum. So when you use this value spectrum worksheet, it's really interesting to think through a few distinct steps. First off, where would you put your market on this spectrum? Do you believe you're fair value for most people that shop at your market? Or do you feel you're slightly more boutique? Where would you put your top 2 competitors? Where might your customers and your competitors' customers decide your enterprises sit? Are your intent and your market's understanding the same? Or have you got work to do to help the market understand your value and positioning? And if you plot yourself and then 2 competitors on there, which points have you left empty? Because by definition, those are market opportunities. So how might you take advantage of them? So again, that's a lot of theory I've thrown at you. I'd love to hear any questions that you have on this stuff.
All right, thanks very much, Mike. And if anybody has any questions, if you just want to type them in to the question box, we'll get to them right away. I'll read them back to Mike. Or if you're on the phone, like one person is, you can put your hand up in the virtual little chat room.
I should say, I think that is the section with the most theory. That'll be the most talking that I'll do. And it's good this is recorded because everybody can listen to it again later.
Yes, and these will be available on our website along with the presentation. within a couple of days. It doesn't look like we have any questions coming through there, Mike. So if you'd like to carry on to the next section.
Fabulous. So this is where we get to the stuff that really feels like marketing, about choosing the media and defining your messaging. So it's been said that only 7% of communication is verbal, and the rest comes from perceptions of behavior, the manner in which the message is delivered, the setting in which the communication occurs. In fact, nonverbal communication is more than 4 times more likely to influence a person's perception than verbal communication. So every interaction with your customers impacts their perception, whether you intend for them to be considered or not. All the good value and work, each of the inevitable mistakes, and even things you simply weren't aware happened, all of these things influence your customers' perceptions of the market. You can't let the details overwhelm you, but you also have to acknowledge that sometimes the little details have an inordinately big impact on people's impressions. There's an old joke about a restaurant patron finding a fly in her soup and the waiter saying, "Shh, everyone will want one." The point is, every little thing counts, and sometimes not in the way you expect. So my point in including that last slide is simply to say that, look, the most important medium you have is your market. Everything that you do at the market is an opportunity to encourage people to shop more frequently and earn their loyalty. But of course, when we think about media, we don't think about our own venue. We think about all of the different media opportunities that are out there, the places where I can buy advertising, the place where I can show up in the right time and in the right way. We call it a media mix because you got to consider how each medium builds on others to increase the collective value. So print advertising can be really impactful and reach like thousands and thousands of people, but it doesn't necessarily drive people to make a purchase. A website, on the other hand, can encourage people to buy, especially online. But with social media rising and becoming so omnipresent, it's increasingly important to think about the labor that goes into maintaining a website and a social media presence. For every organization, for every one of your markets, it's really important to communicate the right message with the right audience. So you'll probably need a variety of different media types to support the market. Each has its own benefits and challenges. Print advertising, that's like newspapers and magazines, they can be really high in cost. It can be very, very expensive to buy advertising. Some magazines can charge well into 5 figures for a single page ad. So obviously very few organizations are capable of doing that, let alone markets. But even if we're looking at community newspapers, a quarter-page ad can be really, really expensive. To run that regularly can eat up an awful lot of budget awfully fast. But the advantage of print advertising is they can be a really effective vehicle to reach a massive audience. You can reach a lot of people really efficiently. Broadcast media is kind of similar. That's radio and TV. They can reach enormous audiences. They use sound, they use music, they moving, compelling commercials and messages. The cost can be even greater. Prominent BC radio stations can charge upwards of $200 for a single 30-second radio ad. So again, it's really easy to spend a lot of money awfully fast. Now, direct marketing is a more accessible vehicle, particularly for small organizations, because the costs can be totally variable. You get to decide how many pieces of direct mail you circulate. On the flip side, their reach is variable too, right? You can totally focus direct marketing easily accomplished with direct marketing. The internet can also be really cheap as a marketing medium, or you can invest big dollars in significant reach. It's also the best medium to achieve significant geographic reach, as there are countless communities of interest online that cross geographic boundaries. The medium that's drawn the most attention recently, of course, is social media. Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, all of these. They're incredibly effective avenues, but you've got to factor in the labor cost of maintaining a presence in these social media as part of your marketing budget. Right? Social media are most valuable when they're kept really, really current, when it's actually a conversation with the public rather than just posting messages and leaving them. That takes constant effort, and it takes a lot of time and labor. So you've got to budget that labor into the marketing plan. And then lastly on this list, outdoor media. This is billboards and the like. They can have a reasonably wide but fairly targeted reach. Choosing your media mix is as much about price and budget as anything else. There are few small enterprises and markets that can afford significant television advertising campaigns, but the right medium can amplify the strengths of some of your messages. So mixing the message and the medium to think about the smartest marketing opportunity can be incredibly powerful. And the great example is, for decades, Americans got used to seeing McDonald's billboards promoting their location at the next exit, right? We've all driven past those signs, 2 kilometers to the next McDonald's or 3 kilometers to the next Tim Hortons. It's a really memorable example of marrying the medium and the message in a really compelling way. So marketing is about sharing the right message to the right audience at the right time in the right way. And the media mix focuses on delivering the message at the right time. The next piece of the marketing puzzle is the message itself, basically what you should be saying. Now, this worksheet that was also in the package is all about focusing your messaging. It's about framing the story that you tell to your market. We're consistently told by clients that this is one of the most valuable tools that we give them and one of the most confusing tools that we give them. So I'm going to go through the process of building a matrix in some detail, and then we can again pause and take some questions. So simply put, every organization has to speak to a variety of different audiences. So the vertical axis of the matrix lists those audiences. Now, on this particular example, we've chosen to focus on customer, media, or the local community. But you can distinguish audiences however you see fit. So you might add the specific needs of vendors, or you might add government agencies. You can create a message series for any of those audiences, and quite often you end up with 6 or 7 different audiences that you're developing messaging for. So that's the vertical axis. The horizontal axis is it's a type of timeline that every person will naturally follow as they become more and more familiar with your market. So the first thing that you want to do is inform audiences that you exist. So on the left-hand side, the first stage, your goal is to share answers to the simple question, what is it, or who are you? These are messages that cover the most basic information that a person would need as they come to understand farmers markets in general and your market in particular. Sometimes it's really obvious, but with a name like Farmers Market, it's really easy to understand. This is an enterprise where you buy food, vendors, wares, and how does that fit into this early informing part of the matrix? Once people understand what your market is, you want to inspire them to consider buying from you. So at this stage, you want to answer the 2 questions, is this for me, and how do you compare? So your goal at this stage is to define and convey your competitive advantage as clearly and concisely as possible. This stage brings in all the attitude and character that will persuade the audience, right? This is where personality lives. But keep in mind that at this stage is where your competitors also get most noticed. So your work around positioning comes into real play here. People who've determined that they want what you offer, but they won't yet have decided you're the best option for them. Then in the third stage, you want to help people to engage with you. These messages answer the question, what do I need to do next? It's about details, it's about commitments. Your goal here is to give people clear instructions, or in marketing jargon, calls to action, removing any resistance or barriers that people might still hold. Now the trick is, by focusing on 3 key messages in each intersection point, so in other words, where each of those 3 stages intersects with an audience, you'll only have 3 messages. By focusing on just 3, you'll create a really practical touchstone for your marketing work. So when you're producing an ad campaign, for example, you'll be able to focus on the 3 key messages where customers and inform intersect, because advertising is a great introductory medium. Your website, though, is more effective at inspiring and engaging, so there's key messages on that medium. It's easy to imagine how you might extend this matrix, right? You can think about way more audiences. In fact, the version we use with clients, we actually run out the stages across the top to 6 different stages. But you could put no limit on the number of audiences. It's not unusual to have 7 or 8 or more defined audiences, and then specific key messages through all 6 stages. But this simplified version is a really useful starting point. And the best way to use it is to work with your team to define the most important messages to convey, or the messages they've found to be most resonant at each point in the message matrix, and then use this tool to guide your decision making about promotional activities. So a little bit less theory that time, but again, totally happy to take questions at this point.
Great, thanks very much, Mike. If anybody has a question, it seems the hand up in the air program is working quite well. So there's that little yellow hand on your control panel. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I will unmute you and you can ask away. And I do apologize. We've had a couple of blips there where we seem to have had some audio interference, but it's across the board, so there's nothing we can do about it. I think that the general message was got across. Mike, you're doing an amazing job that we have no questions. So carry
Either
on.
that or I've baffled them. But that's okay, because we're going to get to the end and reveal that offer.
Exactly.
Let me keep going, and then perhaps what we'll do at the end here is talk about this last chapter, but also open it up and talk a little bit more about specific questions you might have about your markets.
Great, thanks.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about is a really important aspect of any enterprise is to measure success, right? There's an old phrase about marketing. I know half of my marketing work is working. I just can't figure out which half. That's a very outdated problem. These days, you should be able to measure success and understand which of your marketing is working so you can stop doing what doesn't work. Now, ideally, you want to focus on maybe 3 to 5 measures that most indicate your success in marketing, both for the enterprise side of things, the revenue side, but also about your social mission, right? So there are a few fundamental measures that we recommend using all the time on marketing. And the 3 that I've listed here are reach, frequency, and revenue. Reach is simply a measure of how many people are exposed to your marketing messages. And you can judge this by knowing where you're doing your marketing. Clearly, the more people you reach, the better, at least for the most part. It's of little use to reach people who are beyond the geographic area of your market. But local markets shouldn't be promoting themselves in national newspapers. So you should be able to think before you promote your market what geographic area you're trying to focus in and reach people that are more likely to shop at your market. So reach is the number of people that are exposed to your marketing messages. Most newspapers, radio stations, certainly television broadcasters can tell you with some degree of precision how many people will see your advertising message. Now, a second measure that kind of goes hand in hand with reach is frequency, and that's how often the same person is exposed to your marketing message. Now, research has shown in consumer goods marketing, so that's food and other consumer products, people need to be exposed to a message 7 or more times before they even notice a marketing message. It might take more than a dozen times before they actually act on it. Right, so frequency is just as important to measure as reach. You can reach 100,000 people across the west side of Vancouver, but if they only see the message once, that might be a really bad spend. You'd be way better off reaching just a small pocket in the West End, 10 or 15,000 people, if you can hit them 7 or 9 times with your message. That will be a more effective campaign. So by combining reach and frequency, you start to develop a strategy for which media to use. Now then you add on the understanding of your key audience. So you might be able to create a media target like reach every 25 to 40-year-old woman in Quesnel 12 times during the campaign. Now the campaign might last a month, it might last 6 weeks, it might last longer, might use a variety of different media. So your 25 to 40-year-old target audience might see the same message in a print ad, on the side of a vehicle that you drive, on a poster, on a postcard, whatever the case, however it shows up, they need to be exposed at least 7 times to the message if you're going to drive a successful marketing campaign. Another couple of measures that are really useful to use. One is overall profit margin, and then the other is loyalty, the frequency with which people shop at your market. So with those 5 measures, you might have the full suite, but think about what's most relevant and important for your individual market. The other thing that's incredibly powerful and fairly easy to set up, maybe the most valuable exercise in gauging success, is to focus a bunch of time and a bunch of energy on creating and maintaining an informative feedback loop. You have to know that marketing must contribute to your business goals and your social mission, and you want measures to connect your performance as a business to your social mission. That's not always easy, and those 5 key measures might help, but sometimes just sitting down and having a conversation with people is a better way to do things. And there's a few conversations that you can have. With so many social media tools available, finding people that are excited about your market and that are interested to have a conversation with you that you can have with fairly low labor, your opportunity to listen to your customers now is very, very easy. Right? It used to be that you had to do expensive surveys or host focus groups. Now you just get on your Facebook page and have chats with a few people, and you can quickly unearth what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what they'd like to see, what they'd like to see less of. Listening to your customers, having a conversation with your customers is probably the single most important thing you can do, because it goes all the way back to what I said right at the beginning of the hour about understanding your market. The other thing that's real easy to do with a feedback loop is become a customer. Show up at the market and shop experiences please you and what experiences frustrate you, or ask your friends to do the same. Right? For a long time in the restaurant business, people employed silent shoppers, and they would just pay people to go and have dinner in a restaurant and write a report on what that experience was like. That's so easy to do yourself now. You can set up a little Google form for free. People can go in to the market, make their purchases for the week, come back home and log in and deliver a report on what worked for them and what didn't. But whether that's you being a customer yourself or getting some close friends or colleagues to be the customer, that's a great opportunity to learn and get feedback from the market. And then, of course, visiting your competitors, understanding what your competitors are doing, where they're shining, what products they're promoting. It's all about understanding the market that you're in and the moving context, the moving competitive context. So that's it on gauging success. I was going to say we could take questions here, but I think what I'll do is click through and talk here about any questions about that content, but also start to take any questions that you might have about your market and about your marketing and what's worked, and happy to share any tips that I might have.
Thanks very much, Mike. So what we'll do here is we'll just go with the hands up in the air program, and I will create a little question speakers list here. If you are not comfortable with speaking, feel free to type it into the question area, and I will bring it to you as well. Bruce has a question. Says this is an interesting one. We may soon have an opportunity to wrap a vehicle with messaging about the market. It will reach lots of eyes because it will spend a lot of time in the community. Is this a better opportunity for simple brand recognition, logo, etc.? Or would you pick a specific message for a broad but specific customer demographic and psychographic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the vehicle wraps are fantastic because they're rolling billboards, and it's actually it's become incredibly cost effective to wrap a vehicle. So it's become, in some cases, more affordable than actually buying a billboard. And then you can go and park the car anywhere, and you've got this great billboard. One thing to be very conscious of when you've got a car wrapped is to keep the car clean, because a dirty wrap doesn't say much about the strength of the brand. Now, as to messaging, that is a venue that is most useful for inform and inspire messages, so early stage messages. You want to, the blessing that you have running farmers markets is what you are. The information people need to understand what you are is right there in the name, right? So whether it's the Coquitlam Farmers Market or the Vancouver Farmers Market, it's right there in the name is that you're a farmers market. So we understand, we've already informed them to some degree. So the best messaging to put in addition to your name and logo on a vehicle is a really inspirational message that encourages people to think about shopping at the farmers market. It should be focused on customers. If you're going to focus the message to a particular demographic or particular psychographic, you want to promote to the either the audience that shops with you most frequently, or the audience that you most desire to have shopping with you frequently. So it could be that you're catering to a particular type of audience that perhaps doesn't spend as much as you think another audience might be able to spend. So if you think there is an audience that you want to attract to the market that has, let's say, a thicker wallet, maybe you want to use the vehicle to promote to that aspirational audience. On the other hand, maybe you just want to use it to promote to people that are just like your core customer today because you want more of those core customers out, and the messaging really focuses on them. But either way, the messaging that you want to use is that inspiring stuff that gives people a really compelling reason to come and shop at the farmer's market instead of their grocery store. And think about where you park the car. Right? If the car is going to be parked for 24 hours because you're not using it, don't park it by your house by default. Understand where your target market lives and park it in their neighborhood, so it's going to be exposed to people that are likely to shop at your market.
Great answer. Thanks very much. Just looking at one of those ourselves. Nate and Kara, hope you're getting that message. Roger has a question. Roger, you've been unmuted. Go away.
Hi, Mike. We recently completed the toolkit, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but we interviewed 217 of our customers, and we know things about them like how often they visit the market, how much money they spend, how many years they've been shopping, how far they travel, what their ages are,
Fabulous.
what
Awesome.
their values are, what their food buying factors are. I mean, this may seem like a really dumb question, but I don't know how to take all this information and turn it into a marketing plan.
Right.
Like, I know the age spread, I know the gender, I know the income, but I don't know how to interpret that or take that and come up with like a tagline, or we should advertise in this newspaper, or we should do this. I don't even know what my question is.
Fair enough. So so I'm hearing a question that's really about process. How do I move from understanding all there is to understand about my customer to understanding how to develop a marketing plan? So you've got a great understanding of who the customer is. What you need now is to understand which media to use to reach similar people efficiently. So now you've got a little bit more research to do to go out and look at your community newspapers, community centers that may put signage or billboards up, radio stations, et cetera, all those different media opportunities that might help you reach more customers like the ones that you have. And then you start to cross-pollinate the ideas, right? So we've got customers that have these particular habits around shopping. We know similar customers show up in this market. We understand why these people like to shop at our market. Tells that same story. That's part of the answer. The next step is to really understand the what's the budget available for marketing.
Mike, we lost you for a little bit there, I think for about just about 45 seconds.
That's a shame because it was pure genius, and now I can't remember what I
said. And I'm trying to record this.
So I think where I ended up was you've got one huge bucket of information, but the other bucket of information that's empty is what media you can use to reach similar people as those that are already your loyal customers. Now, the implicit assumption there is if customer type X is loyal to you, then more people who are similar to customer type X will also be loyal customers if you can just think the ones you already have, because those are the loyal customers. And then the other constraint that you have is budget and time use effectively, and which ones can you afford to service, because some of them take a lot of labor, right? Websites and social media, for example. So it sounds like you've got one of the great big buckets of information, and now you need the second big bucket of information, and that's the local media opportunities near your market.
Thanks very much for that, Mike.
And what might be interesting is, so we're going to offer that I'm happy to have a one-on-one coaching sessions, which we'll do on a first come, first serve basis.
Oh no.
Which market it is.
Hey, Mike.
I'm here, yeah.
Hi, Mike. Sorry, we've lost you for about
Hear me now?
a couple minutes there. You kind of finished off with the one-on-one coaching sessions that might be available. Can you just repeat that, and then I'll try and go back. I've got one question that was asked, but if we could just get that piece on the one-on-one coaching sessions that repeated, that would be great.
Sure. So the audio's been cutting a little bit for me as well. It doesn't look as bad, and I've got a really strong signal here, so
Yeah.
it must be the network thing. My offer was some of the questions that always come up around process are the most difficult ones to answer because they're unique to each situation. So I'm offering to do one-on-one coaching sessions, probably a half a dozen of them on a first come, first serve basis. But also, as you fill out those worksheets that were circulated, I'm happy to have a look at those as well. So if you want to scan and email those to the address that's on the screen now, I'm happy to look at those and share some feedback that way if it's useful. In this particular question, where we've got these great insights to who the customer is and now need to be thinking about the media, it might be process, or it might be information, it might just be some practices that are the most appropriate things to share. And we can certainly do that on a quick coaching call.
That's fantastic, Mike. Thanks very much for that. I'm just concerned that we're going to run into to some network issues. I think it might have something to do with that orange moon that we all saw the other night. Just so we make sure that we don't lose anything from there, the presentation will be available. If you did not receive the worksheets that were sent out a couple of days ago, please let the office know, info@bcfarmersmarkets.org, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of that. And as Mike was saying, the coaching, one-on-one coaching, probably half a dozen of those available on a first come, first serve basis, but also take the opportunity to fill out those worksheets and fax them into Junction Strategies, and we'll make sure that number's out there right now. I did have one comment from Mary, who suggested that it is a good idea for all the vendors, if they're parking on the street near, to put signs in their windows saying, "Hey, farmers market this way," pointing them to there. That's an easy way to get that going. Again, one of the broader questions was, how, any examples of successful markets that you've worked with in the past? If so, what did they do and why did it work so well? It's a bit of a broad one. The other question that we have right now is, there a forum for farmers markets marketers to get together and share ideas and experiences? We have set up a Google group with the project last year, where the participants were able to share experiences. If you'd like to participate in something like this, please send an email to the info@bcfarmersmarkets.org, and we can get you the information on how to get to either that Google group or to the member forum that's available through the website. Mike, just maybe one brief example of one of the more out of the box examples of a marketing campaign that worked with the farmers market that you've worked with in the past?
Well, there's a couple of things that I'd say. One is it might be intuitive to market every vendor and every product available. So you can sort of imagine the grocery store flyer that has a little feature on every product that's on sale that week. That might be the obvious way to market a market. But in fact, what's more effective is to pick one product and romance the hell out of it. So we were talking with, I think it was Pemberton Farmers Market, and they had, I may be getting this wrong because it seems really weird, but I'm pretty sure they had these blue eggs. And the marketing notion that we explored there was, why not come to the farmer's market and get the famous blue egg omelet? First thing Sunday morning, come out to the market, get the famous blue egg omelet. So we had this really catchy thing that was focused on a real product, a blue egg that they were able to sell. But one would wonder whether they were coming for a blue omelet or if the inside of a blue egg is just the same as any other egg. So you can have fun by just picking one product at a time and developing a story around that one product, or one vendor, or one particular entertainer that you have at the farmer's market any given weekend. So sometimes picking that one thing and building a compelling story about it is a more effective way to market. The other thing to think about with marketing is we always sort of default to thinking that the role of marketing is to get more customers. But in fact, the role of marketing might be to sell more to the customers we already have, to increase our share of wallet. So signage and sampling and encouragement within the market between vendors, presenting, for example, to people that pairing these two food products together is a great mix. That's just as important a way to think about marketing as it is to think about attracting new customers to the market. And then the third thing I'd say is, sometimes you don't have the best location. Sometimes you're off the beaten track. You're hidden behind another building. Making yourself present where there's a lot of traffic might be as simple as having a farmer's market mascot. So what does it look like to put somebody in a scarecrow costume out there handing out coupons or invitations to the market in a higher traffic area? It doesn't have to be totally cliche. It doesn't have to be hokey. Certainly doesn't have to be cartoon-like. It could just be somebody dressed up like a stereotypical farmer inviting people to the market.
Thanks very much for that, Mike. We did have one other idea that Mary sent in, working with any real estate agents that might be selling houses in your area, and ask if they'll distribute flyers about the market. Often that's a great selling point for a house and for a realtor. So yeah, definitely work with them on that one. Thanks for that, Mary. Just one piece on the whole mascot thing, Mike. I have a small problem with that as a manager. I've often been asked to wear some strange things for the market, and I'm just not sure I want to be out there in a scarecrow costume or whatever else those kids decide to put me in. Thanks very much for that, folks. That's been great. We're right at about pretty close to 20 after 8 right now. Mike, thank you again very, very much for your time on this, and for the offer to do some of those one-on-ones and taking those worksheets in and people filling those out and doing a little coaching with that. That's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that's my pleasure for sure.
Yeah, your work is excellent. It just definitely shows through with your presentations again and again. I'd just like to remind everybody that once again we will be making the webinar and the presentation available on the website under the resources section for members. And also, please, we have the end of webinar follow-up consultations. We have to report back to Vancity, our funder, on how effective this series has been. And it's very important that we do the post-webinar series assessment and speak with you on what it is that you thought you got out of it, and also look for some feedback on it. I know we've been sending out some surveys at the end of the webinars, but I look forward to speaking one-on-one with you all on that one. So please don't block my call. That'll be great. It's 8:20 on a Thursday evening here in Whistler and all across the province where you're all dialing in from. So once again, Mike, thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and we hope you have a fantastic Easter weekend. Cheers now.
Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good night.